This is Anything But Footy. I'm John.
The sporting industry in the UK is worth nearly £24 billion, and there's about 1 million jobs relying on it. It's a staggering number, and not something I was aware of until it all ground to a halt, really, in March, when lockdown came in on March 23rd, days after the Cheltenham Festival and the Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta contracting coronavirus. With hundreds of people dying and the NHS preparing for the peak, the future of sport didn't seem that important. But like many other industries and careers during this uncertain time, it became apparent nothing was going to return to normal anytime soon. I recently gave up my full-time work as head of news for Global, a radio and media company that runs some of the best-loved radio stations in the UK, Classic FM, LBC, Heart and Capital, for example. And during my 20 years there, I'd always had a passion for sport and covered events like Wimbledon, the boat race, the Olympics in London and Rio, Euro 2016 in France, the Rugby World Cup, but had decided, due to a change in our family circumstances, that I would look after my son a few days a week and work on an Olympic and Paralympic podcast, try and earn some money through that. With my friend and now business partner Michael, we thought that Olympic sports stars didn't really get the attention they deserve apart from every 4 years, and even more so for para-athletes, so we wanted to highlight what they were doing week in and week out. Anything But Footy has gone well with more than 10,000 downloads in the first year, and some other business for us too. It's on Apple and Google Podcasts and Spotify. If you want to listen, just search Anything But Footy. Now, when the lockdown came in, I knew I needed and wanted to look after my son for 5 days a week, allowing my wife to continue working full-time at home in the office upstairs. This would actually protect us overall. And with all major sport postponed or cancelled, think Wimbledon, the 2020 Olympics, those for the first time since the World Wars not going ahead, while others like football and rugby seasons being delayed, it also felt the right decision. But what became apparent quite quickly as people stayed inside, didn't venture out, that this wasn't going to end on one day, and we'd all have a party VE Day style. This was going to be a staggered return, and frustrating to many, and sport would be part of that, and maybe some sports will never return the same again. We managed to do some work during lockdown, swim England on their plans for when lockdown would end. They knew it'd be weeks and weeks away. That was one of our successful podcasts. And for Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, focusing on some amazing people working in the park, helping the local community. One 3D printing company swapping to make PPE for the NHS. We learnt that people were willing to listen to a little less quality of a podcast via Skype or Zoom if they still get to listen to them. Hopefully you know what it's like to hear a friendly voice through the speakers every week. We're now working on plans moving forward and more social distancing recording or remote recording. Definitely all part of that. But is that sustainable in sport, social distancing? Early in lockdown, there was a clamour for footballers to do more, take a pay cut while sitting around waiting for a return. Many club staff, despite the millions in the game, became obvious they'd been furloughed by some clubs. Liverpool and Tottenham went back on that decision, something my club Norwich City didn't do, and it still more than irks me to this day. This was when it was all about when football might return and how it could return. I'm a Norwich City season ticket holder. I can honestly say I haven't missed the 4-hour drives to Carrow Road for a match, haven't missed us losing every week, haven't missed the constant drama and frustration of VAR and the ridiculous offside decisions. I actually haven't missed football, and a few weeks back thought it was ridiculous that it wanted to come back. But ultimately, as I've said, it's a business now. Like the local bakery, or the key cutters, or the local pub. It had to start planning what it was going to do to get back into action. Germany showed the way, as it's done throughout this crisis with its testing system. The Bundesliga returned in May without fans, with protocols that seem odd, like players not sitting next to each other on the bench, but it's fine on the pitch, and face masks for substitutes and coaches, but not the manager. But it worked. Football returned, VAR was still useless, and if I cared about any German team, I'd have been interested. BT Sport got good viewing figures for that first weekend. I actually tuned into 2 or 3 matches, but haven't since, as again there's been more important things to do, like looking after the family, seeing my friends who live alone on FaceTime or Zoom, and then there's the dreaded weekly family quiz too, of course. No, seriously, it was good fun, and life just didn't revolve all around football for a change. Some football clubs remain uncertain their future does. League One teams split on playing or ending the season, which in effect is what League Two have decided to do. These so-called smaller clubs just wouldn't be viable without a crowd watching their matches. The FA's also cancelled the Women's Premier League season, but I will be tuning into the Premier League when it's back on June 17th, as Man City take on Arsenal, Aston Villa face Sheffield United, and the Championship 2 from June 20th. Of course I will tune in, but maybe it won't mean as much. This lockdown has changed the way I think and feel, and I'd like to think I can continue to put family and friends first rather than football. For many sports, though, the lockdown has been uncertain times, and that continues as England eases out of it. The summer of sport of cricket, for example, is just scheduled to start, only just. July 8th will be the first of 3 tests between England and the West Indies in a biosphere atmosphere, all closed off with players and coaches staying in attached hotels for the test matches in Southampton, at Hampshire's Bowl, and then Old Trafford in Manchester. The Windies say they will be coming and have also had to negotiate a 14-day quarantine rule that's due to come into force for all travellers into England. Same with Formula One, which will have 2 races at Silverstone at the end of July and in August. So we've begun to see what sport is like without a crowd as well, and even punters, with Newcastle hosting the first horse race meeting in 76 days this week. Jockeys wearing face masks was an interesting sight. Snooker also returned, with all players being tested in the Sunday in Milton Keynes, before allowing 18 hours before taking to the bays, and play continuing in the Championship League till the early hours. World champion Judd Trump admitted it was good to have something else to think about, near normal, as he won his first matches. And the World Snooker Championship, usually held over Easter, is still scheduled to be on the BBC this July, the same dates as the Tokyo 2020 Olympics were. In fact, the snooker this week is the first free-to-air sport being shown on terrestrial TV on ITV4 since the lockdown began. No Wimbledon this year, as I've mentioned, but watch out for Battle of the Brits as Jamie Murray stages a competition at the National Tennis Centre in Roehampton later this month, when brother Andy, British number 1 Dan Evans and Carl Edmund will all be in action. There'll be no ball boys or girls or changing ends and no line judges. Hawkeye will be used for all decisions. Just the umpire will be the only person on the court, as well as the players. A huge change, and one, when you think about it, why would you ever go back? But grassroots sport is also really important, getting people active and off their sofas, away from the beach and the takeaways. Golf, tennis, fishing, bowls is now up and running, apart from in Wales, where tennis is still banned. And we haven't even talked about getting spectators back into sporting events as yet. Your guess at the moment as to when that will be as good as mine. So lockdown has changed things in everything we do, and depending on how it progresses, it'll continue to impact on sport and our lives. But what's clear is that, just like work or school, sport has to return for our mental health and well-being as much as the economy. But we have to change with it too, and you never know, it might just get even better.
And download our weekly Anything But Footy podcast for all the latest Olympic and Paralympic news, interviews and conversations. We're on Apple and Google Podcasts. Just search Anything But Footy.